Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm Tim Lake in Albany. The New York State Health Department is warning people not to use black market marijuana vaping products. They have found 34 cases of lung illnesses linked directly to cannabis-based vaping products among people using various vaping devices and products. Now, they say they have seen 23 new cases of vaping-associated pulmonary illnesses just since issuing a health advisory on this last month. State laboratory testing showed very high levels of vitamin E acetate in nearly all cannabis-containing samples, but it was not found in nicotine-based samples they tested. The health department says many of these vaping devices are suspected to be counterfeits of recreational cannabis-containing vape products that are available in other states but not approved for use here in New York State. And this new statewide medical issue comes as New York City's health commissioner has declared the 11-month-long measles outbreak is over in New York City. She says they have lifted the public health emergency declared earlier this year since 2 incubation periods have now passed without any new reported cases. But she says there's still the threat of infection. By the way, there have been more than 650 measles cases in New York City since last October, which represents more than half of the 1,200 U.S. cases during the outbreak. And almost all of those people did not have all of their vaccines. There have also been more than 400 confirmed cases outside of the city, including 2 other measles outbreaks, one in Rockland County and another in Wyoming County. Joining us now is Brad Hutton, the Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Public Health in the New York State Health Department, and of course our weekly contributor, WGY Radio News anchor Diane Donato as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Hutton, for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating finding that has come out this week about vaping and what you think is inside some of these products. Help us understand what the New York State Laboratory has just found and the results that you've released.
Well, we do have 34 cases across New York State that have been reported by clinicians of patients who have had this severe respiratory illness that's been associated with vaping. We've been fortunate that those clinicians have worked with families and been able to retain and send to us products for testing. 13 different products so far here in New York. There's more than 200 cases nationally that are being investigated. And our Wadsworth Center, which is a nationally renowned public health lab, has an analytic chemistry lab that has really taken these products, tested them, compared them to the samples that we test regularly as part of our medical marijuana program here in New York State, and had some interesting findings. In every single one of the cannabis products that we received, the patients who are being investigated here in New York report using both cannabis vaping products and nicotine products. In every single one of the instances where we tested the cannabis products, it had high levels of vitamin E acetate. And we did not find that same thing in the nicotine product, and we have not found that at all ever in any of our medical marijuana program testing.
And they have ruled out viral and bacterial, right? That's not part of this. It's got to be something like perhaps the E in there.
Yes, New York clinicians, and I think it's fair to say nationally, have really ruled out in each of those instances whether or not it was an infectious cause.
So in August you put out an advisory, and that started the investigation here. Why do you think there's a problem with the vitamin E acetate? What would it be doing in there in the first place? And then after that we'll get into where you think these products are coming from.
Vitamin E would normally be safe for use dermally or ingested as a supplement. So it is an active open question why it's potentially causing harm, but certainly our lungs are fragile and you can't just inhale any chemical. I think it's still unknown why it was being used, but it's possible that it was being used just to cut the product. It is something that might...
What do you mean cut the product?
To make it go farther, to expand the volume for sale. And it's in oil form, and so it might have been something that mixed well with the existing cannabis oil and been perceived to be something that wouldn't be harmful.
So vape shops are everywhere. Are people improvising and doing this themselves, perhaps cutting it in, or are the vape shops themselves selling these unaware that this is in the product?
We really don't know at this point. All we know is that the 13 products that we tested appeared to be knockoff black market versions of products that are being sold legally in other states where marijuana is legal. Here in New York, it is only legal as part of our approved medical marijuana program.
Now, you've raised the red flag about this by finding the vitamin E acetate in these vaping products, which is essentially, I guess it's in the liquid. It wouldn't be in the pipe itself. It's in the liquid. What other warnings did you put out there? I know in August you said basically that we're finding these pulmonary illnesses that people need to use caution about these vaping pipes.
I think there's two warnings. One is to never use a product that is not being sold legally. You know, you really don't know what's in that product if it's a black market product. And then just we're providing a general warning to really be concerned about vaping in general. Even legal vaping products contain nicotine, which is addictive. And so we're putting that caution out to really any vape user.
I found it interesting that you said you did not find it in the, now correct me if I'm wrong here, in the nicotine products only, which indicate that the products you would buy in the legal vape shops likely wouldn't have it in there. So that's what led you to believe it was just coming from the black market liquid?
That's correct. You know, in the few products we tested that were nicotine only, we did not see vitamin E, and in the many products that we test as part of our medical marijuana program, we never see the vitamin E. But we found it in each instance where we had received what appeared to be a black market product from another state.
I know you're trying to respond to this very quickly because it's a deadly situation in some cases. I know when vape salts and bath salts, when bath salts were a problem, sometimes you were able to send out images of the product. I know you really did a lot of outreach on that. Is that something that you're doing now as well?
Yes, in yesterday's press release, we did provide some photos to show consumers what these products look like. Unfortunately, they appear to be marketing to children. One of them had a label that was Sour Patch and looked a lot like a common Sour Patch candy packaging. So, you know, we're really doing our best to get the images out there so that parents especially recognize that these are products they should be concerned about.
One final issue here for Brad Hutton with the Office of Public Health and in the New York State Health Department is New York City has declared its measles epidemic essentially over, but as I understand, you're still waiting on final results from some other parts of upstate New York where we have the measles problems. What's the status there?
Well, fortunately, we're seeing really diminished case counts in 3 areas of New York State. The lower Hudson Valley, where we've had a large outbreak in and around Rockland and Orange County, we still see a trickling of cases. We have a small outbreak in a Mennonite community in Western New York, and then also a brand new case in Nassau County. I think the point is that we need to maintain a high level of vigilance. Clinicians across New York State need to be ready. There are outbreaks occurring across the globe, and we will continue to see introduction of imported cases, and we need to make sure that they don't become the next outbreak.
All right, well listen, thank you Brad Hutton for the New York State Department of Health for joining us here on Empire State Weekly. I know this vaping issue is extremely important and extremely critical, especially with these new pulmonary issues, so we'll be covering more of this in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Well, coming up, the drama surrounding license plates is entering its 3rd week now, and there's no end in sight. Who's now joining a state senator's fight to get rid of these license plate fees, and why the governor's office is calling his claims sad. And if you have a comment or a story idea, let us know about it. You can email Empire State Weekly, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back, everyone, to Empire State Weekly. I'm Tim Lake in Albany. Governor Cuomo has signed 2 more bills now to help law enforcement officials prevent gun violence in New York. Now, the first gets rid of a loophole. It blocked officials from getting out-of-state records for people applying for gun licenses to find out if they're dangerously mentally ill, since national background checks only flag people who've been involuntarily committed for mental health issues. The second closes another loophole that allowed people to hide guns from public records. This allows responding law enforcement officials to know beforehand, before they arrive on a scene, if someone has a gun inside their home. And the governor has signed a bill requiring tackle football programs for children to provide parents with informational packets about concussions and other injuries resulting from hits to the head. Those can include trouble concentrating, memory loss, and anxiety and depression. This new law goes into effect, though, in about 90 days, which is too late for fall football programs. Republican Senate Minority Leader John Flanagan has introduced a bill here in New York to protect DMV workers who refuse to enforce the state's controversial new green light law. Now, that bill would prevent the state from investigating or firing anyone who acts in good faith that they're upholding federal laws by denying illegal immigrants their driver's licenses. It would also cover legal costs for civil cases against them. But it's unlikely to get a vote, with Democrats, of course, in charge of the New York State Legislature. Well, the pushback against those license plate fees is growing now, with several county clerks now joining Capital Region State Senator Jim Tedisco's fight this week. They want to know where the $70 million or so will go from charging $25 for new license plates and another $20 to keep your same plate number. The governor's office is pushing right back. His senior advisor says, quote, "At this point, Tedisco is talking to himself, and it's sad. The cost of a replacement license plate was changed from $15 to $25 by a vote of the legislature in 2009 and has been the same for the last 10 years, before this governor took office." And Senator Tedisco is joining us now here on Empire State Weekly to talk about his opposition to those fees and his call for legislative hearings on these license plate fees. Thank you very much for being with us here on Empire State Weekly.
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's an important issue.
So the governor's response has been that these fees in some form have been in place since before his administration. So why the complaint here?
Yeah, well, I've been in government a while now, and I've seen some good things done by government. I think this is at the top of the list as one of the most shameful things. Not only in the opposition to what has taken place, but the distortions of how it was rolled out, that we call it Plategate now, you know, talking about replacement plate program for the constituents, 3 million of them, and the total lack of transparency. Look, let's understand this. These are part of the distortions. There is no plate fee in place. There is no $25 mandate for it.
What do you mean? What does the law say?
The law says, and by the way, let me say this twice. When this was passed in 2009 to move from 15 to 25, up to Patterson, the governor then said, look, we convinced them. We charge enough for our registration fees, some of the most in the nation right now. I'm charging $0, because you could charge $0 up to 25.
So it's
there is
discretionary.
no mandate, discretionary. There is no mandated replacement program if you have plates longer than 10 years or more in the state of New York. No law exists. There's especially no law to charge $20 if there's a replacement program and you want to keep your plate number. Those things don't exist. That's a part of the distortions. But maybe some of the biggest parts of the distortions is, well, we can't read the plates. This is what the governor said. Thruway says we read them perfectly. Law enforcement says we read them perfectly. Easy Pass, I don't know about you. I get my statement every other month or so. They're perfect on that. They read my plate, and they read probably 80, 90% of the plates perfect. Those plates that are peeling, that the company 3M gave to us bogusly, faulty plates, those should be brought back, and they are. You get plates for free when you bring those back. You should never be charged for those. The company should be charged for those. Then the governor has said recently, well, if they want to change this fee structure, where he keeps saying, I guess if he tells that
Meaning you and the legislature. He's
yes,
suggesting you and the legislature change it.
come back and change it. It would cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to change a fee structure which he has control to charge $0 for. He could charge $0 right now. So he wants to say, basically, stop me from taxing. Come back and eliminate this fee so I can't charge you $25. That's classic Cuomonomics. He can charge $25, so he does.
So let's get down to the basics. What does it cost to produce a license plate?
It's important that you ask that. We tried to get it from DMV. We tried to get it from the Cuomo administration. Wouldn't give us enough. We researched it myself, and I want to thank my staff right now for the research they've done. You got 150 inmates from Auburn Correction Facility. They get up to $1.14 an hour, 16 cents up to $1. We used $1.14 for 150 of them for the 2-year program, 6 hours a day. The new Anderson, which is the new company that's going to provide the material, they say it's about $2 million for those 2 years a year. That's $4 million. We think about $630,000 for the inmates to build the plates.
So there are a lot of numbers there. Where's this
$5 million we find out it costs to build these plates.
Okay.
We know what the number is for the cost for the constituents. 3 million people have plates 10 years or older. You're going to charge them $25 a piece. That's $75 million. This is a highway heist
But we don't
of
know that it's
$70
just
million.
$5 a plate or anything like that. We can't come up with a number about how much per plate compared to the 25 that we're being charged.
Yeah, the plate is $1.15.
Okay.
$5 million
$1.15.
to do all the plates, but $1.15 for each plate. So this governor says, I'm going to charge the $25 and bring in a $70 million windfall. Now, he didn't tell us that.
Where would that go, that $70 million windfall?
That's
Where would
another
that
good
go?
point. Wouldn't tell us until a day before I was having a meeting with the people who are going to have to implement this. 6 county clerks from the capital region. Hayner and the county clerk of Rensselaer, several of the county clerks, they said, this is a cash grab. This is reverse Robin Hood. They say the money's going to go to what's called the Bridge and Road Infrastructure Trust Fund. Now, in my years in government, I haven't seen a dollar from the Bridge and Road Infrastructure Trust Fund ever go to a road and bridge in New York State. So I think he just made that up to find something. Well, this relates to transportation. I'll say the money's going to go there. But if he really wanted that to happen, that would have been the first question on the poll, not which emblem you want to put on the plates. And by the way, that's another.
Well, let's
bogus
talk
thing.
about that. The emblem was a new design. The governor saying that we needed a new design on our plates. And I guess there were 4 of them with the Statue of Liberty and then 1 with the new Mario Cuomo Bridge.
And one with Niagara Falls,
Well,
right?
Niagara Falls, I believe,
Is
was
that
on
one?
there.
Yeah, isn't-
What's the thought there on this design? A lot of people were suspecting the governor was trying to do something to get his father's design as the choice for license plates.
I don't know if you saw the New York Times come out. This is they're showing that the bogusness of this. There are 4 plates that have gold on it. All 4 of those plates, even the one with Niagara Falls, has the Statue of Liberty on it. Only one has a bridge. It just happens to be the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge. That's nepotism at its highest level. What's going to happen there? The 4 Statue of Liberty plates are going to break off the votes, and there's a good chance his father's bridge is going to win. Now,
I haven't
where's
heard the
the
governor
Adirondacks?
comment on that specific issue of it, though, has he? I haven't heard him comment on
Hasn't
that
said a
specific
word.
issue of
And
it.
he hasn't given us the information on who won
Okay.
the polling.
So
right
what's the resolution here? How do we resolve this before or maybe after the
now.
legislature
I've asked
reconvenes?
Senator Kennedy, who's the chairman of the Transportation Committee, to have a hearing on this. Bring in DMV and the commissioner, bring in the Commissioner of Corrections, bring in the Department of Budget, and tell us the actual cost per plate. I believe it's $1.15. And the cost for the program for the state, which is $5 million, and we know the cost is $75 million for the constituents, and have a hearing, and let's see what the numbers are, and give that out to the media, and then ask the question to the public: do you want a recall for your plates at a multi-million-dollar cost when you have some of the highest registration fees in the nation right now? I think we have to have a hearing on this.
New York property owners have just gotten school taxes
Good
in the
point.
mail this week, and certainly they're a lot more than $25. Why do you think this has become such a flashpoint?
I think because 189 people have left the state of New York last year, 1 million over the last 10 years. It's incremental. When you nickel and dime the taxpayers to death, it catches up with you. When enough people who can afford to leave the state leave it, who's going to pay for all the services for the disabled, for our education system, for our libraries in New York State, for the infrastructure? And when you nickel and dime them like this, there's a backlash finally. I think they've reached enough is enough. And you know what? This is bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and the Assembly. This is the first time I've seen that type of consolidation and bipartisan support on an issue like this.
All right,
we
final-
don't need this proposal, and we don't need a $70 million highway heist of the taxpayers.
Final quick point here, Democratic-controlled legislature, who's going to win this issue?
In terms of the Democratic-controlled legislature,
For the license plates.
yeah, I think they're going to support not allowing this governor to do this if we can. Now, he has control right now, but as I said, he wants us to come back and I guess to stop him from taxing right now. And I don't think we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I think he's left there twisting in. They caught him with his hand in the cookie jar.
Oh,
right
certainly
now.
a hot issue, isn't it? Wow. And this has captured people all over New York State.
Yeah,
I
one
hear-
thing
I hear
I'd
it from
like to
every
say
corner.
before we
Quickly.
close, not one Republican voted to get him the power. I brought you the legislation today. It was his Democratic colleagues in both the Senate and the Assembly, and now they're railing against
All right.
what they've done because They don't want the $25 fee either.
Hot issue. Senator Jim
Thank you.
Tedisco from here in the Capital Region and parts of the Adirondacks as well. Thank you. Well, coming up, record flooding on Lake Ontario has subsided, and now the cleanup can begin. How the state is helping homeowners repair damage yet again. Welcome back, everyone, to Empire State Weekly. I'm Tim Lake in Albany. Homeowners impacted by this year's record-breaking Lake Ontario flooding can now apply for up to $50,000 each in state funding to make repairs. The Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River Flood Relief and Recovery Program will allocate up to $20 million to help homeowners with costs that are not covered by their homeowner's insurance. Priority, though, will be given to homes with damage that threatens the safety of the home. The application period, by the way, runs through October. Well, a week after New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand dropped out of the 2020 presidential race, another New York politician could soon be following. Coming up, we'll tell you who's now indicating that he could soon end his struggling campaign. Finally, here on Empire State Weekly, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio could be one of the next Democrats to drop out of the 2020 presidential race. He says he'll likely end his long-shot presidential campaign if he doesn't get his poll numbers up enough to qualify for next month's Democratic presidential debate. De Blasio qualified for the first two debates, but he didn't make the cut for the third this Thursday in Houston. He claims, though, in some places that he's going to stay until at least next month. For now, though, for all of us here on Empire State Weekly, I'm Tim Lake in Albany. We'll see you right back here next week. And don't forget, you can watch Empire State Weekly all over New York State. Here now is the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 television stations across New York State.